Hey guys, so I'm here discussing our next topic. As you guys said last time, we were discussing more about the trampoline park industry and how it was developed. And now the problem is when I rotate my device, it won't let me rotate it. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to stick to this format, guys, because as soon as I turn it, it says I have to rotate my device. So sorry about that. But I want to discuss. We have one comment below that's asking about how to motivate athletes. From the competitive side of things now, because we don't just want to talk about trampoline parks. That's just one small subcategory. But in terms of motivation for athletes to be competitive, this is a tricky sort of thing. We probably won't be able to get through all of it this time. But the reality is that you got to understand what you're really motivating the athlete to do. You're saying that I need you to listen to my instructions, to do what I'm telling you to do. You won't really understand why, because most coaches don't tell why, which is part of the reason that we're going out and doing some of these clinics to try to motivate people to start asking why a little bit more. But the reality of what we're doing is saying that, okay, so the motivation comes from something that they need, right? They need something. And you, as the athlete, have to blindly follow your coach from a young age usually. You can't be usually 19, 20 years old saying that we're going to now motivate you to be an Olympian, because by then you've already lost a lot of training, and another 20 years is what they say that it takes you to become an Olympian, 15 to 20 years or something like that of training to even be in contention, let's just say. Well, now all of a sudden you're like 38 years old or something. It's a little too late probably. Not to say you can't, because there's a couple people that are like 43, 45 years old. So not to say you can't, but the odds are stacked against you. So this is why most people start at a very young age. But being at this young age, you now have to just blindly follow instructions. Problem is, you don't know who you're following. You can say, oh, well, I'm a good coach and this and that. Well, who's to say you are, right? We've been on the world tour now for 6 months, and I've also been in the industry for 22 years. And just because someone says they're a good coach, no, definitely not. There are good coaches out there, and there are bad coaches out there. I'm not even going to give you a percentage. I do know a percentage, but I'm a nice guy, so I won't. But the reality is, just because you say you understand coaching doesn't mean that you really do. And in terms of motivation, you really have to find a way that your athletes are motivated. Most people think, oh, well, because I'm in a gymnastics gym or trampoline gym or whatever it is, I'm motivated to go to the Olympics, let's say. But 99% of the time, that's not the case. If you actually ask a young kid, why are you here? Then they'll be like, well, I like to, play with my friends, or I like to do this or that. And sometimes we've had actually kids say to us that, if I come here because if I come here and I learn a round-up back handspring backflip, then I'll be able to do a round-up back handspring backflip at school and I won't get bullied. Doesn't sound like an Olympian. It sounds like someone that just doesn't want to get bullied, right? So you have to look at the reality of the situation is that motivation is intrinsic for everyone. Now the question becomes, well, what is motivation then? Well, that's a little bit trickier, and you talk to a bunch of psychologists and they'll all tell you a different story. But the reality of what they actually are all saying is that motivation comes down to a need. It comes down to a necessity of whatever it is that you are trying to get away from. I'll give you a small story. We were in Bali in Indonesia a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting down with the person, and I said, hey, they said, Greg, you're really passionate about trampoline. And I said, well, yeah, I love trampoline, but that's not really the root of my passion. That's not really where it comes from. Trampoline is more the vessel getting me to what my passion is. And my passion for me was to run a successful company and to do something in this world that really gives back to people and to helps, right? Coming from an orphanage, I'm the kind of guy that's, I see the world a bit differently than other people that come with, let's say a proper upbringing and all that sort of stuff. So that's where my motivation comes from. I found trampoline to be the thing that allowed me to speak that voice to the population. Right? There's a big difference. It's not that trampoline is the passion thing. I do learn to love it, but the reality is that it really comes down from something before I even started trampoline. And what you got to look at as a coach, a competitive coach, is that you have to look and say, what is actually motivating my athletes? And it's not because of the fact they just want to learn skills. They want to learn skills because of something else that they want to do. It could be something as simple as, oh, I learned a skill, I learned a front roll, and now mommy and daddy are smiling at me. Well, all the other times they hit me at home when I don't do my schoolwork, and they're always yelling at me. But when I learned a front roll, then all of a sudden they smiled. Oh, I want mom and dad to love me, so I will do more front rolls. Right? And it could be very that simple. And a lot of coaches would say that's not the way that works because they don't want to disvalue their the kids want to learn the sport. But again, and I can throw all the research at you guys, that's not the case. The case is the fact that the kids come into the gym already pre-motivated, right, in a certain way, and they're trying to now live out those motivations through gymnastics or trampoline or parkour or hockey or whatever the sport is. It has nothing to do with the sport. It has to do with what the kid was coming in, what baggage they're coming in beforehand. So this is the problem that competitive athletes are getting now, is that a lot of them don't really want to be Olympians. A lot of them don't care to bust their butt for 22 years, spend $250,000 and then basically get very little out of it at the end. Some people say, oh, well, you have an Olympic medal, and that's great, but only if you're motivated to stand on a stage, right? It depends what your motivation is. And we can't quantify what a motivation is. We can't say that one's better or worse, just say that everyone's different. Mine is not to necessarily stand on a stage. Mine is to do other things, to add more value in a different way, right? But other people may want to do that. Some people may want to just wear a nice leotard. Some people may want to do this and this, whatever, right? And you can't really quantify that, but most of the kids from what we're seeing don't necessarily understand that that's where they're being headed towards, right? They say, oh, you'll be an Olympian, you'll be world-class this, you'll be that, you can point your toes, straighten your legs, whatever the case is. But then when they realize really what that entails, they all of a sudden don't get too excited about it. They're like, oh, wow, well, that's not so fun. Maybe I should do something else. And all of a sudden what you start noticing is that more people start pushing and say, well, you know what, it's okay, I'll just quit. I'll just do something else. I'll do this or that or the other. And they don't go to competitive anymore, right? And this is simply because of the fact that the things that they were motivated for, like keeping people happy, making the coach happy and stuff like that, weren't enough and are still not now the motivating factor to keep them going. So as a competitive coach, you got to find what makes you motivated from the get-go. And usually that comes down to a couple things. One is creating a community for the kids, right? Everyone thinks, oh, you're here to win a medal. I wouldn't think of it that way. If you win a medal, great. That's not to say that's bad. But if that's the reason you're going into this, you're probably going to have a high turnover rate, let's just say, right? What you want to do is probably take a notebook from the TV industry and say that we want to create the community. The top TV shows out there have been reported because they are the ones that make you feel like you are part of the family. There's a popular show called Friends, around for like 10 years, right? It was so popular because you felt that you were a group with that friends. You were one of them. Right? That's a huge selling point. All right. The other sports leagues make you feel that you are part of the sport. Right. And the shows that don't really do so well tend to be ones that it's all individualized and I can't really relate to that. So right? And that's what you want to do is create an atmosphere in the gym. So you can open the gym and have competitive athletes and all that, but you need to be more of a community based, right, where you're going to have them in there. And then what you do is you pick the top ones from from just years of cultivation, and you then give them a special group, which is a little bit more boot camp-ish and more hardcore training, right? If you are trying to do hardcore training to everybody, you're gonna wind up with a very small amount of athletes, right? And this is the problem that people face, is that they don't understand how people fundamentally learn, how people actually do development and cognitive development and stuff like that. So they're going at it backwards, right? But if you start off by just founding a love for the sport and just letting them play around and roll and have fun and not give them too much instruction, then all of a sudden you get these kids in there longer, and then you're more likely to get more out of them, and they're more likely to see the results, and they're more likely to then be positively motivated by the results, which then just is a domino effect up to success. Right? But most people look at it like, well, if they're just not bringing medals from the start, then that's an indicator of a bad athlete. Well, here's the reality. I've competed for 22 years, coached for half of that. No, I coach. I'm like 26 now. I started coaching when I was 13. So yeah, I'm almost 27. So like, yeah, 14 years, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. But the reality is that there's two types of athletes, generally speaking. There's the ones that are really good at listening to rules and doing all that stuff at a young age, and they follow the rules, tell everything, whatever the coach wants you to do, they do it. Usually comes from authoritarian parents or something like this. Again, we're not going to get into all that. But then you have the athlete, and those ones usually get a lot of medals at a young age. They're the ones that do really good at the recreational aspects and first couple levels of provincial or state level, and they usually do pretty good. But then you have the athletes that do good internationally, and those are usually the ones who are kind of a little bit more rambunctious, let's say, the ones that don't necessarily listen to the coach as well, and the coach will say, you have no handle on this kid. Well, those are the ones that if you can just kind of cultivate them and give them a community, they'll figure it out on their own, and you just give them the environment and let them just hack away at it. Right? The reality of what a lot of people are doing is they're trying to force them into a certain box of learning. But learning can only be done a very specific way for that individual, and every individual is slightly different. But now the question from a competitive coach becomes, well, I can't just have everyone in their own box. I can't have everyone just doing their own thing. Psychologically, yes, they are, but from a practical sports level, they can't. So this is just where you then create these different groups. And now a lot of these federations are creating more categories. Start off with 3 categories: beginner, middle, and advanced. Well, over the years, they've realized that by giving everyone their own category, it helps them, learn that they can do more stuff. They can fit into a community a little bit better, right? And each category is like their own little community, and that's one way they're doing it. I think the downfall, what they're forgetting, is that competitive is not the answer always. Sometimes, not always. A lot of people don't like to be on stage. A lot of these new kids are in the backyard trampolines, kids in the trampoline parks, the kids even in the regular gyms, kids even like me, I don't want to compete. Why do I want to be on stage? I just want to go throw the quad or the quint or whatever it is at the gym, make a video of it and feel good, and then go and do 6 and then do 7. I don't care if I did it in the middle wearing tights and stuff. That's just, who cares, right? A lot of kids don't care about that stuff, and there's not an avenue for them. That's the big problem. So when it comes down to how do I motivate my competitive athletes, it's really not the fact that you need to find a way to motivate them. You can't really do that. What you need to do is find the ones that are already motivated. And I'll end off by telling you a simple story. I used to fight with my coach, Dave Ross, a lot about this and say, well, everyone can be an Olympian. Dave, you're just lazy. You're sitting over here not really coaching. You're just focusing on a couple athletes. You don't know what you're doing. Right? I used to give him all this grief about it when I was younger. He's like, nah, Greg, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to waste my time with people who aren't going to go to the Olympics. I'm like, well, anyone can go to the Olympics. Anyone has the capacity to do this. And he's like, no, they don't. And I was like, wow, that's really a shallow way of thinking, at least I thought of it. But then when you start to kind of realize and you go through the world and you start seeing that when you think someone should be motivated for something, it's only that you are motivated for that. But it doesn't mean that everyone else is. So what Dave was basically telling me is that, yes, if you are motivated, you will be able to go to the Olympics because you want to. But are you actually motivated to do so? And that's the real question. Because everyone thinks they're motivated because it seems nice at the time. But then when push comes to shove and a girlfriend comes into the picture, or mom and dad want to leave and you need to now get your own apartment in the city that your coach is, because he's the head coach of the USAG or Gym Can or whatever country, and are you going to now leave that coach, or are you going to fight tooth and nail to stay there to go to the Olympics? Well, everyone says they will until then it's actually put in front of them, and then they don't, right? Because then they realize, I don't actually want it. So what you need to do is find the athletes that really want it, right? And this comes down to a lot of creative different ways. You can do little tests like, hey, little boys and girls, what's up? Welcome to summer camp. I'll give you a piece of paper and it has all these different pictures. Draw the one or color the one that you like. Well, subconsciously, the kid's going to gravitate to the one he likes the most. And you'll see, that's a parkour one. Or this one's a one in competitive where the person's on a stage and on a podium. Oh, maybe this person's here for an egotistical trip rather than because they love the skills. And, you can modify different. There's been thousands of studies done like this, where you can find what the real motivation is in kids by just creating fun little interactive games almost, right? So you got to be looking at that and scouting those kids and then talking to those parents and getting the parents on board, because if the parents aren't on board, well, then that kid's going to be very quickly not on board as well, because everyone likes to say it's all about the athlete or all about the coach, but no one realizes it's actually a three-way street where it's the parents giving the funding and the support and driving the kid, then it's the coach giving the information to the kid, and then it's the kid remodeling it and applying it to the world in their own somewhat unique fashion. Right? But a lot of people don't look at it that way. They look at just go get a medal. Well, that's not really the best way to look at it, right? Oh, I have a question. I don't know how to show it. Sorry, but I got comments here. I'm still learning how to do this, so I can show. Hold on a second. Hide all. I don't know. It doesn't. Oh, there it is. Cool. Apparently, I just learned if you press on the screen and scroll up, you get to see all the comments. Greg, I have a question. When I backflip, I go so far back. How do I make myself go up instead of backwards? All right, well, this is a little bit off topic, but I'll answer it really quick. Yeah, exactly. Don't drop the shoulders back. Keep your head in. If you want a quick, easy fix, put a sock or a shoe or something soft, not a brick, and under your chin. This will line up your whole body like this instead of like that. And then all of a sudden, you'll realize that you actually kick from the toes. That's where the rotation comes, and not from your shoulders or back or head. And think about looking at your toes as you kick them over your head. That will align the back of your spine, and that will help you stay in the same spot. You could be leaning back, because a lot of people do this, where they jump, and the last minute they put their feet forward and think that, because I'm leaning back now, that means I'm going to rotate, which is true, but you don't have to do it as much as most people think. And you'll see this with cheerleaders, where they will jump forward to jump back. I gotta hate it so much, and it just takes the coach to force them not to do it, right? But coaches get lazy a lot more than they'll ever admit, but we won't get into that. So yeah, just do that. Also put a block behind you. You can do a jump roll onto a block, see this thing here, I'd put a block there, I would jump and try to roll up onto it. That'll force you to stop doing that, because you'll just hit your head on the mat, right? So I guess cheerleaders. I used to coach a lot of cheerleaders when I was just a regular coach, just at a regular gym, and they come in, they think that they don't have to have conditioning, they don't have to have any technique. They just the one parents were yelling at me because the kids couldn't do a rope climb and couldn't do anything, and I was trying to get them relearn the rounded back handsprings on the fast track, on like a bouncy trampoline track instead of the floor. And they were like, well, we have competition next week. I'm like, yeah, but your kids can't do that, so I'm not going to kill them, right? Just, there's always another competition, right? And then they're like, well, I don't understand why they can't do it on the floor. They're strong enough. So I'm like, all right, well, let's find out real fast. So I brought the parents out. Hey, girls, I need you to run and jump off the floor and land on a block. The block was about like this high, it wasn't very high at all. It was like waist height. And none of them made it on. I'm like, well, how are you going to do a back tuck shoulder height, which is like a safer sort of starting point, if you can't even jump without a flip more than like 3 inches off the ground? And the parents didn't even say nothing, just slunked off back in the corner, gossiping again. They kept coming back, but they learned very quickly that it's a lot more about strength. So now I did have another question about, here it is. How do I get motivated to keep tumbling when I always think on making quads on trampoline and stuff? I don't really understand what that means. When I always think I'm thinking about doing quads. So if you're basically saying that how do you stay motivated to do tumbling when you really just want to do trampoline? The question really becomes down to, what do you get out of it, right? If you're getting tumbling is making you happy and you love it and everything's going good, then keep tumbling. You could have had maybe just a bad day, but if you're normally seeing that generally when your coach says tumble, you just start daydreaming about trampoline or whatever it is. Could be your girlfriend, or could be about a movie you saw. If you're daydreaming about other stuff while you're at training, that's usually a really strong indicator that you're not really there. Mentally you're not there. You're off doing something else, and not because you're a bad person, just because you're just not motivated. You're not getting the value out of it that you feel that you're putting in. Now this could be a couple of factors. Could be just maybe you have a bad coach. Maybe your gym club is not really a friendly environment. Maybe you're stuck at a plateau in the learning curve, so it just feels like everything's kind of piling up against you and you're looking for an escape, right? And trampoline could be an escape because trampoline is a lot easier. So I'd be staying away if that's just what it is. So, but this is where you got to think to yourself, well, which option is it? Did I just come from a kind of a bad sort of scenario and I'm still working my way out of it? Or, hold on. Where would I start if I want to find a coach to teach me? I've never really done any tumbling. That's a tough one, because the reality is what you're saying is, where do I find a qualified coach that will meet my demands and my needs as an athlete? I've been looking. I haven't found any for me, But don't tell anyone I said that. That's a hard one. That's a real hard one. You have to basically find a way. I'd be looking for gym clubs around you. I'd also be looking online. Now, we're going to be working with making series and stuff like this online that will have like a subscription-based sort of thing where you pay for the year, just a like small amount, nothing crazy, but you get all these series of videos for free, and you just keep adding to it, like a Wikipedia, but for acrobatics. So you might be looking more to find those things where you could just kind of learn on your own. For now, and then once you kind of figure out what you're doing and why you're there, then you can find a coach. Because if you find a coach now and you don't really know what you personally want, you're just going to keep going through coaches. So I would be doing some research on your own and figuring out what you need out of this before you even approach a coach. And when you do, tell them what you need. Just be honest. Don't let them tell you. Tell them, hey, I'm here for this. This is what I want. I need you to be within these boundaries, let's just say, right? And basically, don't take no for an answer. A lot of people do, and then they end up, why do I hate my life 2 years later? Well, it's because you took no for an answer and you basically settled, and now you're not happy with it. Well, don't settle. Get the person you want. All right. You can message me privately if you want more info on that, but yeah, you got to be kind of a little bit more tougher. I don't know who this Joe guy is. Do I have a G-Tramp? Yes, I do. And it is over there. And it is currently not being used very much. I used to do a lot of trampoline, like G-Tramp stuff when I was a kid, but then I kept breaking stuff in the backyard and not really hurting myself so much. Obviously, a couple injuries here and there, but my parents then put me in a gym where they said, look, you're going to be safer here. You have mats and coaches. And I agree with that. The backyard kids are doing really well, and I like all the stuff they're doing. I'd like to see more of them cross-train in a gym so that they can at least understand the mechanics and then take it back to the G-Tramp and, find a little happy medium there. Because there's no point just chucking skills without understanding what's going on. And you can land on your head a million times, but you're not gonna create infrastructure by just chucking it. You got to understand a little bit of the history, a little bit of the background. And this is why I put all my stuff online, and we're trying to make everything available, because people don't want to just go competitive. So we're trying to give them another avenue, let's just say. But yeah, no, I like backyard trampolines, so that's why we're actually working with a couple of them right now, trying to figure out what we want to do and how to give back to that community more. My biggest dream is being a G-Tramper, or is tumbling or trampoline best for learning that? If you want to be a G-Tramper, then you want to probably stick to trampoline. But cross-training is really good. The thing with trampoline, it's easy on the body. It's very simple, and you can't really... Well, you can obviously hurt yourself, but it's a lot less likely to hurt yourself. You can gain height a lot easier. You can also fall down a lot easier, but you don't necessarily need the strength. And this is where one of the big mistakes with a lot of competitive trampolinists is they all look like twigs. There's very rarely are they big and bulky and ready to go, because a coach thinks you have to be aerodynamic. Well, kind of, but let's say Matt Turgeon was an Olympian, Canadian Olympian, 2004, I think. I don't remember. He was my coach too, really good guy, but he was like 200 pounds when he competed, right? That's a lot. That's a lot of weight, right? 200 pounds, big bulky guy that was like 6'1" or 2", and he still got a bronze medal at the Olympics. So you can't really say, oh, you have to be aerodynamic, and this is where the injuries come in. So as for you, I'd be doing tumbling as a way to strengthen the ankles. Ankles, you need to, have rock solid ankles. And I know all the coaches, well, you got to point your toes and this and that. No, you don't. You need to point them enough to the point the judges say, oh, that looks like a pointed toe. But if you're off by a few degrees here and there, they're not going to then all of a sudden take off points. And I know your coach is going to turn around, not your coach, but a coach will turn around and say, oh, no, we have charts to say 0.1 here and 0.2 here and whatever, but they don't actually do that, right? They just say, oh, that looks like he pointed his toes. Great, we won't take a deduction off for that. Oh, that looks like he's not pointing his toes, so we will. It's a yes or no, not a really degree. From a practical level, from years of training and years of competing, they don't really actually do that. So where you can take the points, take them. And don't have too flexible of ankles. Make them more solid with tumbling, and do round up back handspring, double layouts, back folds, whatever you can. Just that constant, motion of banging your feet and just solidifying those ankle structures, we'll call them. It really is going to help a lot just with your G-Tramp, because then when you fall down, which you will automatically, just because that's the way it works, then you will be less likely to roll your ankles and break them. So I would say tumbling for sure, or powerlifting, all that sort of stuff. I do 9 hours of competitive trampoline a week, and I have problems with twists. Can you help me? Yeah, we have a tutorial for front twisting and back twisting with the late twist. It's not really complicated. You don't even need to do it to your side and stomach the way we'd have. You literally can just go back flip. Think of it like a tuck first, because if you tuck, then it distracts you. You won't twist. So you go back tuck, you get into a tuck position, you open, and then you twist at the end. Right? And it's just really simple. At first, it feels like, what the hell is this? This is weird. I can't do this. But you just play with it. The muscles kind of adapt very quickly, a lot quicker than you think. And you basically will then start just adding the twist little bit by little bit, right? Don't fall for these tricks where they'll say, well, if you do this and you drop the arm, and that'll make you twist. It will make you twist. But for a back full, that's great, and it will, and you won't know why it will. So then when the coach says, hey, now we gotta go double full, and now this is the thing you've been taught is drop the arm for full, well, how are you gonna drop the arm for double full? Just hold on longer, which is what a lot of coaches say. That doesn't really tell the athlete what's actually happening, right? What's actually happening is you're doing an order of steps, and you're doing a set, flip, and twist, and then you're building it up bit by bit, just the way everyone else learns. So when someone comes and gives you a gimmick for twisting or for flipping or for any trick, it doesn't work, right? You can try it and have fun with it, but then think to yourself, why does this work? And if you can really understand fundamentally why that can work to the point where you can apply it to everything else, then that's something you can stay with, potentially, at least in my opinion. But if I have one of my old coaches said, you learn Rudy, a front flip with a 1.5 twist, by literally just dropping the arm. So you're here and you just drop this arm at the same time you raise this arm up, and it'll make you do a Rudy. It did, right? But then when I want to do Randy, which is 2.5 twists, 3.5 twists, whatever, then what? Just whip my arms faster, bring him back down and whip him up again before I land? What's going to happen? No, because that's not really how you actually twist, right? So the coaches that tend to give these little cover-ups, it means that they don't actually know what they're talking about. It means they don't understand what twisting really is, because there is no cover-up. It's called either you understand the fundamental mechanics step by step, or you don't, and then you have a cheat for it. Right? It's like a Band-Aid. It doesn't really do anything. It just makes you feel better at the time of. But then the Band-Aid falls off, which it always does because you sweat, and then the Band-Aid falls, and then now you're still left with the same problem. So skip all that. Just go back to the basics. Send me a message. I'll put the link into the description. It's basic twisting, and it shows you step by step how to do it, and it's that simple. The other stuff is just a gimmick, so I'd stay away from all that. Tumbling is only backwards, and I want to learn forward flips and twists. So then what's stopping you from learning forward flips and twists? Just, you got to do it. You build it up step by step. How does the G-Tramp competition going to work? Well, this one we're still trying to figure out, and this is where we're actually looking for some suggestions from people, because everywhere you go, people want to work with it differently. If you do the G-Tramp one as just a gathering, then everyone's just having fun. It becomes a cool video. It's promotional. A lot of people like that. But the problem with that, and the only problem with it, is the fact that without a bit of competition, or at least some kind of structural hierarchy of ways you can move up, people are unmotivated to continue. And really what it becomes is just a charity. And you guys are probably young, I don't know how old you guys are, but charities tend to have a lot of problem with employees because they're unable to keep them coming in, because they're unable to give them value for working at the charity, because there's not much money coming in. Really simple version, not really how it works, but that's generally the sentiment, is that you get a lot of people that don't want to do much, right? So in the G-Tramp community, we're trying to make sure that they don't fall for that, where they just, we're all just hanging out and having fun and playing. That's good, but you need a little bit more than that to further it. Like one of you guys said that you want to make a career out of G-Tramp. Well, you can't do that from going to gatherings, because you can't do that unless you have a sponsor willing to pay some money to pay you to come and sponsor it and build, right? So fundamentally, sport is built of money, right? And I'll get more into that probably in another one, because it's already been like half an hour, but it's basically money, right? And if you can't have money flowing into the system, you won't really get any outputs of the system. So you really gotta keep doing that, where you keep building and create an infrastructure where people can compete, but they also can be open and just have fun at gatherings, and they can bring in money, and they can donate money, and blah, blah, blah. So we're trying to figure all that out. It looks like it'll be more done on freestyle, difficulty, as well as we could do like a partner thing, but we're also looking at maybe a game of add-on. Trampoline used to have it where it was double man elimination. So that we could be looking at that too as a thing, because that actually used to be the official world championship competitive thing, was double man elimination, and you just basically bounce for a while and try to show off some cool stuff, and basically everyone in the crowd and the referee kind of judge and say, well, who's clearly better, and then they basically make that decision. So there's lots of options. So again, send me a message if you have any suggestions, and we'll keep going from there. But I think I'll leave it at that. We were talking about motivation where we started, so I'll end off with motivation of saying that you really, no, I don't know Rasmus, is that how you say it? All these foreign names, it's crazy because I don't know how to say them. So sorry, I don't know them. But anyways, from the motivational side of things, you really got to figure out what the motivation is for yourself and for the athlete. And it's not going to necessarily be what they tell you. It's not going to necessarily be what you think it is. And most likely won't be what the parents tell you. That can almost guarantee. How many parents are going to say, yeah, my kid wants to come here and learn to do backflips because I'm a bad parent, and by learning a backflip that they can try to impress me. No parent's going to admit that, but it happens a heck of a lot more than anyone would ever want to talk about, right? So you got to start doing some investigative work on your own side, and there's lots of psychology out there. So look into that, but start cultivating more from the mind rather than the skill, right? Figure out where their mindset is at, and then create a pathway to success through that, rather than just thinking about medals. All right, guys, thanks, and we'll catch you later.